Welcome back, everybody. This is episode 60 of An Untold Narrative, where we feature creatives from around the globe who have amazing stories to tell, who have maybe impacted my life, who I've been following for a while, who piqued my interest, and I think will pique yours. And today's guest is no different. Drew White is on the podcast today. Drew, what's up, man? How are you? Where are you? How are you feeling?
What's good, Dave? Thank you for this opportunity. I'm feeling great. I'm in Providence, Rhode Island right now. Uh, yeah, as you said, my name is Drew White, designer amongst other things, human, all that good stuff. But yeah, what's happening with you?
All good things. So is that how you classify yourself? If somebody's like, you're walking down the street or you're at a party and you're like, and somebody's never met you, which is rare around Providence or Worcester or Boston. People mostly have met you at some point in the street fashion world. But if someone
Yeah,
hasn't met you, how do you introduce yourself?
I've always had trouble with it, to be honest. I say I'm just like, I'm a designer. And then it's usually like, oh, what do you design? But I hate getting like super specific because I don't know. I like to keep it open and flexible. I don't want to like pigeonhole myself. But yeah, it definitely is just like a designer. And to be honest, probably before the past couple of years, I wouldn't even have said that. I would have just been like, creative guy, like, yeah, I just like real gray area. I have a hard time selling myself. We kind of were just talking about this, but yeah, I keep it fluid and flexible. The titles are cool, but I feel like if you've seen my work or if you know me, it like makes more sense that response. But yeah, it's nothing too rigid or strict. I try to keep it
And how do
fluid.
you classify your creative process? Or like, do you like, if you had to hone in on design, right? Is that graphic design? Is that product? Is that like art in general? Like, how do you like?
I would say definitely product design first. I feel like a few years ago, it would have been graphic design. Is how I would have like really classified it. But nowadays, I would say product design. Yeah, and publication design is like more what I'm trying to like hone my skills in. But yeah, for lack of uh more precise terminology, I would say product design. So spanning footwear, apparel, objects, and things of the sort.
You just said publication design. I don't think I've ever heard that. I'm
I
very
might have made it up. I just looked to my right and I saw these books, Feels Like Home, that we're working on volume 3 now. So yeah, trying to figure out
what's your definition behind that? Is that like storytelling? Like how would you classify that?
what feels like home.
No, publication design.
Oh yeah, I don't know, just like sort of like looking at it because it's like a text. Oh, it's almost like we look at it like a textbook of some sort. So it's like it has this like I don't know, educational thread through it. So it's not just like designing a zine, I don't think. I think it's a little more thorough and calculated. So yeah, I don't know. I might have made that up.
I
I might
think
have.
you should totally stick to that. That was the it has a ring to it. It's kind of cool. I'm super happy that appeared on this podcast. While you brought it up, I do want to talk about that. And I honestly, you do a lot of things that like I forget about, or probably it's hard to like always capture like all the different in the breadth and the bandwidth of work that you do. But like talk about like the Feels Like Home project. You said you're going into volume 3.
Mhm.
What is it and kind of why are you doing it?
Yeah, so Feels Like Home is pretty much a publication that started between myself and a handful of other friends, Abby, Sam, and Mikey, and we all have like different points in which we've like connected through the footwear world. One of the biggest connecting points has been Bodega. So Abby and Mikey both were at Bodega for a good amount of time. Sam had always worked closely with Bodega because he was on the other side at like Reebok at different and Adidas at different points in his career. So initially we all got together to do this project that, you know, we would cross paths in all different places over the years, where it would be like, you know, after different people moved on from Bodega, I'm still there, but you know, we'd be in LA. You could relate to this for sure. Just being in different places and crossing paths, or like seeing familiar faces where you're like, oh, you might not know the person, but you're like, damn, I've been in a room or an event with the, you know, maybe I should introduce myself. So the whole idea of like being able to be in these different places, but have a connection that's a little deeper and in a way feels like home, feels familiar enough, feels welcoming and all this stuff. So that's like kind of where it started. And it's kind of grown to, you know, at first it was like a photo book that just featured like my graphic design, Abby's photographs, Mikey's photographs, Sam's like, you know, thought processes all like mapped out. And the first, you know, volume we did of it did really well. We went to Chicago and we sold a bunch of issues and stuff. And we were like, how can we make this more meaningful and like get more people involved? And so it kind of carried on this new breath of life when we started like involving other creatives in our networks and communities. But it is mostly Northeast based, you know, from New York all through New England. And yeah, just like kind of like curating all these different mediums of work, but it's all within this like scope of like does, you know, nostalgia, like design, like sort of like history, like educational tradition, you know, all these things mixed up, but it all is centered around the idea of like feels like home. So it could be very like like specific regional things that we're like citing and like bringing attention to that you would only know if you're like from Boston or from that area. Or there's like, you know, Sam's like grandmother's like recipes that would appeal to like, you know, people that are of like Puerto Rican descent. They could like, you know, relate to that and, you know, see some of themselves in it. So it, yeah, it's just like this platform now, I think, for the region and for kind of like people that we believe in and feel like should have the opportunity to be in print in something that's like timeless and sort of a record of, you know, a physical record of what was happening that year or where our interests lied in that year that it was created.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
I love that. That's super fun. It sounds like it's a growing concept, and you're bringing more and more people along for the ride with it. So definitely people check it out, especially if you're in the Northeast, which some of the viewership is from the Northeast. So speaking of home, ever since I got to know you, you've been a huge Providence advocate, Providence, Rhode Island, and obviously where you live, but you touch on different communities and different cities around the area, such as Worcester, where I live, and Boston, obviously where you work, and you impact people and kind of and triangulate between, let's call it those three. But like, you talk about Providence a lot. Is that originally where you're from? Why do you speak so highly about the city?
Yeah, because I feel like it's like you know, it's like the country's best kept secret. I feel like with Providence, the expectations are so low because people that don't know just aren't familiar. So when they come here, they're kind of like, oh shit, like you guys got like great artwork, there's great food, there's all these like different cultural things happening. So I've never like heard of someone being let down by my over like selling of Providence, which is awesome. But yeah, it is where, you know, my family's from. It's where I grew up. I grew up in East Providence. I went to high school there and everything, but there's just always been a heavy connection from, there's like a triangle out here that I very much identify with between East Providence, Providence, and Pawtucket. That's like where all my family is. It's where everyone grew up. You know, my grandmother was like huge in the Providence school system, super well respected. I got, you know, father, family that were like firefighters and all this stuff in the city. So it is just like, I'm very prideful about it. And I think it's just overlooked. And being in the smallest state, it's like, that's part of my whole like mission, you know, is to bring attention to this place and kind of try to like open doors, and not only like you said, and it's not only for like Providence, but it is for like, you know, like Worcester and like all those you know, all our little like mill cities and towns that have this like very blue collar kind of approach and like upbringing or like start. And now it's like we have all these, you know, the younger generation that still like lives in these places and their parents are still doing that type of work. But it's like there's a lot of creative people and a lot of people that think a little differently, a little more like practical and pragmatic in how they approach things. And I just like, I believe in a lot of people out here. So I don't ever, you know, and a lot of people that make it from these areas, they kind of make it elsewhere, and they don't necessarily like, I don't know, they don't, not that they don't give back, they find ways to give back and such, but I really want to like make it while I like stay here and make it quote unquote while I'm here, you know, and be able to like be a part of like helping other people, you know, break through. So that's been the goal. There's like a bunch of people that are on that mission with me over the, you know, I'm not the leader of the mission, but like there's a bunch of people in different areas that I view as the leaders, and we all, when we come together, I feel like a lot of magic like happens. There's heavy connection with like, I don't know, just like certain people in Worcester. Obviously Boston, it's like been a second home for me. A lot of people I've like learned from and really look up to are out there. And yeah, it's all like, you know, fluid in how we all influence and like push each other sort of.
I love that. Yeah, no, you definitely can hear the energy in your voice about like that mission. So I loved hearing about that. It's exactly like how I interpret it every time we speak together.
Mm-hmm.
Growing up in kind of, you know, that area, was it super creative back then? Like, how did you get your creative start? Was it like education, or like, you know, how did you get going?
Yes, it's, I've like, I don't know, I haven't fully like thought this through, but I did not go to school for design or art or anything like that. You know, even college, like I went to Suffolk. That's like where my Boston connection started, was like, but aside from like sports and being fans of like the teams and stuff, it's like it was going to Suffolk and I was going for marketing. And it wasn't until I went to Bodega and I got an internship at Bodega where it started like getting clear for me. But not to say, so back home, it's like, yeah, there's a lot of creativity around. I just felt like when I was growing up in East Providence specifically, it was like there wasn't much to sort of like to like create, like to harness that creative energy. There wasn't much to look up to. There weren't like people that were like, oh, that's like so and so and he does this art, you know, and it's fire, he's from here. It's like there wasn't any of that. And what I really attribute it to now, like looking back, was like my mother. She was always super hard working. She had me when she was super young, and she was a house cleaner. So I would be, or like, yeah, a house cleaner or an office cleaner, whatever. So, but I would be in all these different like offices and design led spaces that she would be cleaning, and I would be with her, and I would spend time in these spaces. And one of her like clients was like this fine artist that lives on the east side in Providence. Another one was an architect. So I was in these spaces, but like this is nothing. It's crazy you asked this, because this is nothing that I don't know. I sort of credited the creativity toward till like recently, like really thinking about it. I'm like, where, yeah, it is true. Like, where did I, you know, because it was all sports and like school, you know, like that, like real, like, I don't know, not creative education growing up. And it was like, I think just the exposure to these different like workspaces and creative spaces, like through my mom and through like my grandmother, who was a teacher in Providence for a while. It was like, I feel like that exposure like led me down this path in a way, but it wasn't quite until I got, like I said, to Bodega, where I saw people that weren't that much older than me, like doing really crazy, like creative shit. And I was like, yo, I want to be like these dudes. And it was specifically Marvin and Randy, who were the like original designers at Bodega. Those were the guys that I was like, yo, I want to be like, I know I could do this type of work. So I like, yeah, I kind of like, yeah, I figured it out that like way later. Up until like college, I didn't know what the hell I wanted to do. Even like I graduated with a degree in marketing, and it's like it's helpful in where we, you know, in the space we work in, regardless. But
Right.
I definitely, yeah.
I
So I
I
sorry
could
to go on forever on that one, but
No, I that's
it,
amazing. No, I honestly super similar. My mother also had us, me and my older sister, when she was young, and she cleaned homes and offices as well.
yeah.
I've talked about this on a podcast. She used to bring us to like even a funeral home that she had to clean, and
Oh damn.
it like really, like, I look back on those days, like we would try to help her for like $10 for like a couple hours of
Mm-hmm.
work, and like it sounds super similar in that sense. So that was awesome that you shared that. You mentioned that you interned at Bodega, which is kind of where you got your giddy up start, and so that internship happened when you were still getting your education at Suffolk.
Yeah, so I want to say it was in my like sophomore year at Suffolk, and they had a setup where it was like, you know, you could get an internship instead of going to class. You know, instead of going to class, you would have
Yeah,
to just like write something every week that you went to the internship, but you would get full class, like 4 credits or whatever for it. So
that's cool.
I pretty much applied to like Bodega, Concepts, and Karma Loop at the time because
Hell yeah.
I was like, my whole thing was, bro, I was going to business school, but I was not trying to wear a suit. I was like, I was anti, like, that was my whole mission with, I don't know, coming out of school. I was like, I wanted to be comfortable in what I was like, you know, in what I was familiar with and comfortable in. And yeah, Bodega was the only one that like hit me back really. And yeah, ever since then, it was kind of like, and then at Bodega, it was the timing. It was like, I came in as a marketing intern, but they didn't have any social media at the time, and they also weren't selling product online. So I just saw that as my opportunity to stay. Like, okay, if I could, you know, start the shit, then someone needs to manage it, and maybe I could be the person that just manages it, and then, you know, and one thing leads to another, and 10 years goes by, and here we are.
Yo, whoa, we're gonna rewind real quick. So you joined them as a marketing intern. You saw two opportunities of like, hey, like, why aren't they doing these things? And like, if they're not gonna do it, I might as well help them do that. And that was really like your foundation in your first couple of years of your focus there.
Yeah, it was. And like, it was like they were like dabbling or they had interest in it, but it wasn't fully there. It was like they were putting product on the website, but it was kind of like, you know, we have this product in store and it would just be on the website. You couldn't buy it.
Yeah.
Or like, you know, because and it was a super small team. And it's like, you know, they already have fire designers. They had a great buyer at the time. All the like positions were kind of filled. And I'm like, okay, I'm here on the internship, but like, how can I stay? You know, I'm trying to like get paid and stay. I'm not trying to just like work for free. And yeah, so that is how it kicked off.
That's amazing. I didn't know that about your journey there. You
Yeah.
mentioned 10 years now. You've obviously done tremendous work. For anybody who's never met Drew or seen his work, he's been a crucial part of the Bodega family and a lot of the collaborations and stuff. Talk about, you know, your journey. You start obviously on the marketing side, and you find your way. You mentioned two designers were there, like awesome designers when you joined, and now you are heading up all the collaborations and the design work and the direction there. Like, how did you progress and bridge that gap?
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, it started with the internship, and like with that, like Bodega was it still is relatively small, but it was super small then. It was like, I don't know, like 10 to 15 total people. And you know, the two designers were sitting right up front, like in the Bodega front, right? And I was sitting with them. So I was with, like, even though I was doing the marketing stuff, I was up there with them every day. So I was like, you know, looking over their shoulder, asking questions. They would have me trying on clothes that came in, like you know, and like, so I was like, I became kind of a part of their process, not in a big way. Like they had the vision and all that. I was just there, and it would just be like, what do you think of this? Or like, what do you know? And so yeah, the marketing internship role went into like sort of like a lead. I don't know. The roles there are so gray because everyone does so much. But it went from like marketing intern to like the head of marketing because there was no one doing. There wasn't a marketing department, so it was just like I was like, okay, I'll do. I was doing social media stuff, you know, and then I was doing like PR stuff at the same time. So like anytime we had a project coming out, I was putting together like the press kits and doing the outreach for that. And I was putting product on Shopify, like copywriting for the
Oh
product
shit.
and like, yeah, like upload, like, so doing all this stuff, it's like, it was that for years and years and years. And then it was more specific as we got more people added to the team, it was more specifically PR and you know, like marketing strategy stuff. And then when, you know, we ended up hiring more people and then we had like a marketing team and department, and I was kind of like trying to figure out how to like be like, I enjoyed the marketing role, but I was less into the technicality of the marketing work and more into like the ideas and such. And so at that time, by that time, like the designers, the two main designers had moved on, just like pursuing different goals they had in their career and lives. And my homie Pat assumed the design role, and he worked on the sales floor for a minute. And he has a brand called Bandulu, and he did the design. He held down the design role for a couple of years. And while he was doing that, I was kind of like in this in between, like project manager kind of role, where I was like getting more involved with the product, having more of a say on it, but I still wasn't technically the one designing it. It would be like, you know, I had, and parallel to this outside of Bodega, I was working on my design skills and like doing posters for parties and like trying to get my chops up. And yeah, with like a collective back in Providence called Stay Silent, like I worked like closely with them for a minute, doing all the posters and promo design, graphic design stuff they needed. And essentially like Pat had moved on to pursue Bandulu full time, and that left an opening. And it was kind of like a little step at that point because I was already in a lot of those conversations. I already was familiar with like what we were trying to accomplish and stuff. So it was like, it was just being ready for the opportunity, because then I had all this proof of like, hey, I can design shit, because I was like getting busy outside of Bodega. You know, I wasn't like waiting. I never wanted to like have to ask for the role. You know, I wanted them to kind of like notice that I was working hard and like doing stuff and like, hey, you could do this. You want to do this? And then I was just ready for it. And that's not exactly how it happened, but it's kind of sort of how it happened.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. It kind of just, there's so much to go off of there. And for any like creative listening of like, how do you find these opportunities or anything? It's just like, you got to be ready in multiple aspects. And, you know, it's not I feel like there's a lot of pressure these days. And this was many years ago still. These days, it's like, there's a lot of pressure for creatives to do something outside of the 9 to 5 and like branch out and constantly be learning or be curious even of like, how do I learn new things? Or like, but you never like, I don't think it was intentional. It sounds like you were just like interested in like, I'm going to help some friends that Stay Silent. I'll like do the graphics, and then maybe it'll eventually turn into like some work at work. But like, it just like was this like serendipitous thing.
It was. And it had to do like, yeah, it was a lot to do with like proximity, I think, and just being in that. Cause you know, like Bodega is like, before I like shopped at Bodega before I worked there, you know, and I was like a fan of what they did. And I thought I was gonna open a sneaker store. Like that's like what I wanted to do. I'm like, I'm gonna go to school for business. I'm gonna come back, open the sneaker store. And then as I got in there and I was like, oh, I don't want to deal with inventory. Like, I don't want to have to like Nike, like beating me over the head with like product, you know, like I don't want any of this. Like, I'd rather just like, I don't know, figure a different way to be involved in this world. And it ended up being the, you know, design and like, you know, product development side of stuff. But it definitely did have to do with like you said, there is a lot of pressure. And I feel like one thing that I always did was like, outside of Bodega, I always took on these jobs or like work that most of the time I'd be doing it for free, but I would just do it to see if I could do it. I would like agree to do it. Like someone would be like, yo, I'm looking for a logo that's like, and I'm like, yeah, I could do that. And in my head, I'm like, I don't know if I could do that, but I'm gonna try to do that, and it would take me forever because I'd be like watching tutorials and trying to design the logo. It would take me like way longer than it should and all this stuff, but that's ultimately how I feel like I prepared myself
Oh
for the
man,
opportunity.
I hope people got their notebooks out and are listening, because like that is amazing. Just advice in general is like you don't necessarily even have to know what you're signing up for, what you're saying yes to. I did this back. It was in January a couple months ago. I said yes to doing a window mural, and I've never done a mural or painted windows
I
before.
saw you.
But
I
like
saw what you posted on
I
that.
just said yes. I was like, I'll fucking figure this out. And again, you go to YouTube University these days, and you can
Exactly.
figure things out. It's like, do I have the core skill sets, and then can I apply that in a different way? And it's just it's a really fun learning process, and you never know how that's gonna help you along, or that experience is gonna like connect you to something else down the road. And it sounds like that mentality has really benefited and helped you out over the years.
No, absolutely. It has. And at this point, it's like, I feel like you also have like when you're starting out, you have that's like the luxury of it, kind of, because like the expectation isn't too grand yet. It's like you're building, I don't know, you're like setting up your expectations at that point, like what other people expect of you. So if you're just like, I was always transparent, like, yeah, I could do that. Like, I'm gonna do my best. And it's like they weren't losing anything because they weren't paying money. So it was just like, it just worked out. But
I
yeah,
also I also think a major golden nugget out of this. I know there's a in the design ecosystem, there is a conversation around should designers get paid for their work, or should you take free jobs. I've always taken the stance of yes, you should do free work because it outweighs any $12 an hour gig that you may or may not get. And it
mhm,
sounds like you take the same, or basically hearing you say these things makes me think that you believe in that.
for sure. No, I do. And I think like now it's a little different because I'm trying to be like smarter, like, because I'm more confident and I have like more of a track record of like proving that I know what I'm talking about. But like, when I was starting out, it definitely was like, and even now, it's like, I don't like, money is never the first conversation I have. Like, I have to like believe in what's going on before I even care about getting like paid for it. And I think that is the tough thing because it's like, there's a lot of designers or people that are a lot younger that I respect them for like establishing their value out of the gate or whatever it is. But sometimes I think uh they're a little too eager to like stamp that value on their work rather than like figuring out what they're actually like really nice and good at, and like what are they bringing to it and bringing to the next level. It's like the education could give you, if you went to school for the shit, yeah, that could afford you a certain, like stamp of value or like for your work. But I don't know, in general, I do think it's like up to you to like show and prove through the output. And then like in my case, it's like I hope that people that are reaching out to me are like at this point are like reaching out to me because they want me, like they want me to put my thing on it, more so than me like like working within, I don't know, something that's more like specific of a goal where it's like, oh, we want you to create this, like, and it's like completely out of my wheelhouse. Like that doesn't really get me excited.
No, I think
um
that's the best part as people's careers transform, and you use the term track record. As you start building a track record, then you can start saying yes to the more so specifically to the projects that you relate to and you want to work on, versus saying yes to every job because you have no idea what the hell you're doing. So I
mhm.
think you're definitely working towards that and building that solid foundation based on the work that you've done. Speaking of, is there a specific, over your years of creativity, is there a specific project that like you hold near and dear to your heart, of like something that you're like, man, I love that project so much more than anything else? Or do you have a couple, like, do you ever think about like the work and like some of the really great things that you've done?
Yeah, there's a couple. I feel like, so for me, Feels Like Home is representative of one of those, just because it just allowed like my goal in the whole thing is to get a lot of people that I respect involved with whatever work it is that I do, whether it's Bodega. You know, if you look at like, I don't know, the talent that we use for Bodega and who like the support system of creatives that helps Bodega be great, it's like it reflects all those things. But Feels Like Home was like an independent. It was like, you know, me and the homies creating this thing to uh to bring everyone in on, and like, you know, so that felt really good all the way through. And I would say the Nike Dunk project was like just a moment all together for so many reasons, but one of them being that, like, you know, I grew up collecting shoes, buying too many shoes, all this stuff, and Nike was just that brand, not to mention like the Dunk and its like impact alone as a piece of design or footwear or however you view it. So that project, for those reasons, and beyond that, like what we did with the project through the storytelling. So it had this whole like very nostalgic, youthful take, kind of. It was like Sandlot. It was like a new version of the Sandlot almost. So that's my favorite movie ever. So like all those elements like had me super like gassed on that project. And then like furthermore, I had mentioned Marvin earlier, one of the original designers at Bodega. At the start of the pandemic, he passed, and that was the same year. Like later that year is when the Dunk dropped. So I had this idea of like that Dunk representing. It was like the Dunk before the Dunk. It was like a folklore. It was like meant to be like this piece of folklore, like this idea of like this bespoke, like handcrafted Dunk that came before the original. And we had this, you know, I wanted to call it the legend or whatever, but you know, obviously the project was in progress, and then Marvin had passed away, but we made him like a central point of the project because he's sort of like the epitome. He just like was the personification of what like Bodega represents. You know, he was like the person, if there was a person, like in hindsight, even though he had moved on from the brand and stuff, but like just the way he was as a creative and a person in general, he like really represented some of the, I don't know, the pillars of like what Bodega is to me, and like the impact that Bodega had on me. It's like it has a lot more to do with the people that have been there than like, you know, the brand. And I think the owners would even say that. It's like the brand is what it is, but that's just the place for these people to like get together. So like just doing that project and being able to like, I don't know, sort of do something in honor of him, or to like help amplify his legacy for people that don't know who he is, or people that just know Bodega and the Dunk, and if they like really looked into it and got the card pack, and then he's the main card in the pack, all those things. That was the one project that I feel like was like super near and dear.
And yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I still remember the video of like the kids running down the street. I think was it filmed in Providence? Am I mistaken? Or
it was New York, but it was meant to be ambiguously the Northeast, I think.
Yeah. No, I remember the campaign. Those are the leather products, right? With like the baseball stitch in them. Or yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think even shout out Kevin Law. He just picked up another pair at Boston SneakerCon this weekend.
Oh yeah, he's wild. Kevin's wild. He got the jacket. He got the whole kit.
He did. He got
that's the card. That's Marvin. Yeah. But his neighborhood legend. His nickname was Stro, Mr. Style for Miles. We got like his style stat, his fucking swag stats on the back. Cool. But yeah, no,
that's an amazing project. And that was more recent. That was obviously a couple of years ago that you guys did that project. So you've obviously worked with so many different brands, and you've been able to capture this. And it seems more so today, right, in 2022, that it's normal for a brand to work with other brands and stuff like that. How have you been able to like still find creativity in that after so many different collaborations or so many different, like, you know, not repeat projects, but repeat collaborations with certain brands? Like what still piques your interest after doing it for so long, I guess, is the question.
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, because that's true. Like when I started at Bodega, there was like Bodega has done so many footwear specific projects, right? Like if you look at the sock, like we've done like over like damn near 50 Sauconys over 15 years. That's like crazy.
Crazy.
But it is, man. So there's a couple things. I think one aspect of it is kind of like trying to find that unexplored that new territory for Bodega. So it's like the Carhartt project. It's like we don't have that many apparel based projects. So that's like kind of where my head's been at. Like how can we do these more apparel, like align with these more apparel based brands that we do stock in the store and we have a relationship with, but how can we like do something meaningful and impactful with like some of these brands? So that's one school of thought that like keeps it fresh. And then I think just like, man, I don't know, like certain, like, I guess the conversation, because like, as well as I do, like a lot of the brands have plans for what they're doing and where you fit in. And I think for us, it's like, I'm cool with fitting into the plan, but I try to stretch it every point at which I could like get more out of it. I try to. So like, I just always are like, I don't know, our like approach has to do with like shooting for the moon every time, knowing damn well like half of that stuff is gonna get chopped. It's gonna get chopped down regardless. But we always try to be like very dreamy in what we're asking for and our approach. And I think that's what keeps, I don't know, like the gusto and energy behind it for me, because it's like in certain instances, it's like the brand will get behind us on elements of that and it'll push the project in a direction that like we didn't even see it being able to like actualize into. And then in the other sense, they're just like, damn, you guys are crazy. Like, I don't know what y'all are on. Y'all are crazy. We can't do it for this one, but it leads to like bigger because then they know now with like some of the brands, they just know that we're always gonna come at it like that. So I feel like it gives us just like better opportunities in a way, because they're like, oh no, they're gonna be like super thorough and try to like push it to the max. So we should give them this project instead, or like, I don't know. So it's a mix of things, but I think it is trying to navigate like new territory for Bodega, and then trying to like really push the things forward where it's like we're introducing something new through this partnership. It's not, it could just be colors on a shoe, and it is a lot of times, but being able to like amplify it in the ways that I think we're one of the few brands that are able to do it in a very impactful way. I think that's what keeps us like energy. It keeps our energy in it, I guess.
I love that. No, that was a tremendous answer. I really appreciate that. I think that's perfect.
Whew.
Like, yeah, no, you crushed it right off the top of the head.
Thanks, Doug.
Talking about, keeping yourself energized and bringing new narratives to the table. We were just spitballing a little bit before we press play on this in terms of yourself as a creative and some of the different things. And obviously the Feels Like Home project is something that you've been working on, you're going to continue working on. What is does Drew look out into the future in terms of like what he's going to work on next, or like how do you navigate the month over month, year over year? Do you have a plan, or you just kind of go with whatever you're feeling in the moment?
Yeah, I need to get better at having a long-term plan. I don't have like a very specific plan. I do, like some relationships that started from graphic design, like these people are growing and doing great things on their own, and it's afforded me different opportunities. For example, like Stay Silent, they started off as like a design, event and like content sort of company. And now they have their own venue in Providence called Crib. And I helped design the interior like space for that venue. So it's like, I want to get into more stuff like that, like beyond product, like space and like physical I don't know whether it's like art pieces or it's things that people go into and experience, or it's something that someone sits on if it's furniture. But definitely getting a little more, I don't know, a little out. I have this idea of like wanting to create things that people experience without it being tied to any brand or label. You know, whether it's an installation at a park that's just there and like you experience it and I don't know, you discover that like who's behind it later because it does something for you, you know, and you're that curious about it. You're like, yo, who's responsible for this? Like this chair that I sit in every day and like soak up the sun at this park, like whatever. So I don't know, trying to do more shit like that. Like I actually, Rhode Island just had a license plate design competition where it was open for people to submit a design. So I had to, and I'm waiting to hear back, but like I guess 900 people submitted.
Oh shit.
So I'm not gonna be mad if I don't get it. But how sick would it be if like your design's just on everyone's car in the state? You know what I'm saying? And like cool. People have to see it every day. People are looking at it every day. People are passing out license plates with their design on it every day. That shit would be crazy. So I don't know, stuff like that. I really just want to, focus on things like out here that I'm gonna like see every day, or like people that I run into and help, like, you know, level up whatever they're doing, whether it's musicians or
that's so cool. And you definitely are one of the people who bridges the gap between, let's call it, physical product of like footwear to art to, you know, events, and that's always why like I've admired it from the far, is because like you can bridge all those gaps, because there's no real like fine boundaries anymore. Like it's all one big merging, you know, creative economy, let's call it.
No, absolutely, I agree.
I got a couple more questions for you. One is, where can people find you, right? I know you don't necessarily post or share a lot. You don't even use your real name or your last name on social. You kind of have to dig the internet to even find it. But where can people follow your journey? Do you even have a website? Like, I obviously know you have an Instagram, but do you have a website?
Yeah, I do have an Instagram, but I'm not active as I should be. But that's a goal of mine. That's a goal. So okay. I'm gonna be getting more active. So you guys might want to get it. No, sir. You might want to get on there. No, but I just have a website that's it's more or less like a portfolio website. It's called afeeling.us. It's a-feeling.us. And I try to keep that up to date. That's got my email and stuff on there if anyone wanted to reach out. But I would say there, and hopefully Instagram. It's at Drew_bar, and I'm gonna be on there going crazy soon.
I'm so fucking jazzed up right now, dude. I'm happy you dropped that, like being like, I'm going in on it. What I did have a question for you. I've always been curious as to like, why the Drew Bar?
Oh, so BAR is an acronym for Beyond All Reach, which was a brand that I started that was another like way for me to prove that I could do this design shit before I was and like, I don't know. Yeah, it was a brand that I had, and I probably stopped being active with like 5 years ago, but I had it for like 4 or 5 years, and I was printing tees at the crib and doing pop-ups around the like Providence and stuff. And yeah, and I still, it's crazy, bro. I still see people like wearing it here and there. It's people that I do like have a connection with, and I love to see it. But yeah, so it originated from that. It was Beyond All Reach was the brand, and I was like, I don't freaking know. The one brand ambassador, Drew_bar, had to attach it to myself.
Would you?
But people think it's my last name, or people like that's what people refer to me as sometimes. Like Drew Bar, like blah blah blah. I'm like, whatever. I'm gonna keep it.
That's why I was like saying, if you just like search online, like it's hard to even find an article that says Andrew White on it.
No, for sure. It is. Yeah. I gotta. I probably should. I don't know if I should switch it. I'm gonna keep it for
No,
now, but
keep it. I like that it's kind of anonymous. It's kind of cool. And the fact that it stands for Beyond All Reach, I think is really cool. You should definitely bring the brand back one day, like as part of something.
I'm
Okay.
plotting on it.
Okay. So we got two massive news drops here on this episode. Everybody should
Gonna
go follow.
break the internet.
Everyone definitely should go follow Drew on Instagram at a bare minimum, and just see what he's up to. You share a lot of events, even so if you're anyone around the Northeast and you want to get active and meet some new cool people who do things in different music scenes or art scenes or anything around the Providence area, Providence, Boston area, definitely check it out. Last question for you is if you could.
That's my girl.
Hello.
Oh.
It's Shetty.
Also, she just walked past. Is that my painting back there?
Oh yeah. Oh wait, can you see it?
Yeah, I could see it in the sunlight.
Yeah, why is it? I feel like you can't read it. But it's on an easel. I don't have much wall space. But yeah.
Oh my god. Dude, I fucking love it. I'm so happy you have it like out and about.
Oh, I gotta keep it out and about. People think it's like a photograph. Like I printed a photograph on canvas. This shit's so realistic.
Oh my god. So for those watching on YouTube, you got to experience a painting that I gifted to Drew back a few years back at the No Bad Days collaboration with New Balance. Or the series of 3 shoes is one of my favorites of all time. I just think that it's the messaging and the storytelling behind it is beautiful. But anyway, we're gonna loop back. I appreciate your girl walking through and just and highlighting that back.
Cameo. Yeah, no, that was meant to happen.
It was definitely meant to happen. Last question for you. If you had one piece of advice to give either a creative or somebody else, or even your younger self, or anybody you meet on the street to help inspire them, or something, a piece of advice that's helped you along your journey, what would that message be?
That's a good question. I would say one of the main pieces of advice, I think for me, like speaking to my younger self, is to be less of like a perfectionist and a control freak with your practice, whatever it is. Like I've just gotten to like the bad habit of like wanting something to be so 100% that I just sit on it forever, or I never like just put it out there. It's like a lot of power and vulnerability, and I'm still like figuring out my approach to it. But I definitely think like as much work as you put in, try to get in a consistent fluid motion of like putting it out to the world, even if it's your friend group or a smaller group. It doesn't have to be on like social media or whatever, but like just like people to get some level of like feedback and interpretation and whatever it could provide you, reinforcement, or maybe it will tell you have to hit the drawing board again. But like I have a terrible habit of just sitting in this exact space with my ideas or with these projects and like manicure them and fluffing them and doing this stuff. And it's like I just wish I would be more like off the cuff with it sometimes and just put it out there. And because I'm always reminded the reason, and like a lot of times I'm reminded of the reason and purpose behind things at that point when it's out in the world and people are receiving it how they receive it and they understand it how they get, without me having to explain it to them. Or it's like, some people ask questions and it's like, that's like what gives me more like satisfaction and that feeling of empowerment than like, hoarding it like, yo, I got this, I got all this stuff I'm gonna like do when it's 100%. It's like, I don't know, I need to be a little freer in that regard. So I think it's something like that. And then just like set yourself up to be ready for the opportunity. So don't wait. Like, because one thing with being out here and being where we're located is like a lot of people will be like, I gotta like go to LA to like get on. Like people don't get me out here. And it's like, like maybe, probably not. There are people that get you, you're just not finding them. Or it's like, you're not putting in enough energy into what's happening out here. You're kind of just like, so I think a big thing for young creatives is like to make the most out of what you have in your environment, what you have access to, and what resources are like in your backyard. It's like you're not gonna go from, I don't know, taking selfies on Instagram to like consulting for Nike. You know what I'm saying? But there's like brands in our backyard that are like, you know, the all the other footwear brands that you could like try to get your foot in the door and you work towards what you get into. It's not gonna be a instant gratification sort of, you know, sort of setup. So I think that's important to
My
like
God.
recognize too.
Drew just dropping gem after gem after
Whew.
gem. That was fucking amazing. What an unbelievable way to wrap up episode 60 of An Untold Narrative. Drew, I'm so stoked. One, I'm stoked for our friendship and our relationship together, but I'm really happy that you spent the time with us today and just kind of talked about your process and some of the things that you've been doing and are doing. So I'm excited to, and definitely give them a follow and stay tuned for the future.
Thank you, my man. No, I definitely appreciate you too. I was just looking, and that the panel where we met each other was 3 years ago this month in
Was it
Worcester.
really?
Yeah, well, it was early February. Yeah, because I was looking
shit.
through my email for this link, and your name, like from Nelson, us being on a group email for that panel. But yeah,
Oh
no,
God.
goes without saying, I appreciate you, bro.
I wish that still, that behind the hype still existed, but I think the name we could only do it once because the name was like owned by Hypebeast or something like that.
Oh, it was one. Oh, yeah, that makes sense. I knew it looked familiar. Okay. No, but that was a moment. I like a lot of the people that I met that day in Worcester. Those are the people that I'm still, you know, like connected with, and I check in on. So I definitely appreciate you too, bro.